Welcome back from the recess from the Monday, August 12th council meeting. We're back for a second session of the evening. It looks like it could be a short session. That's always famous last words, so I might have just jinxed it right then and there. But we'll start off with an opportunity for any public delegations that might wish to come forward. This is the second opportunity that we have with this council format. I don't see anybody coming forward. In fact, there's nobody actually in the council chambers. And so we will move on from the delegation portion and we'll go into council member reports from our external agencies, boards, and commissions. We had two council members that had reports, and we'll start first with Councillor O'Toole and the Combative Sports Commission. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Since the 27th of July through the 2nd of August, I was down at the McCormick Ranch with the annual convention of the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combative Sports. I had an opportunity to take in a MMA official referee training and also MMA official judge training. And those were full day courses, very intense. I also listened through some sessions on the ABC drug testing process by a guy named Andy Foster, which is in charge of the combative sports in California. Met Andy a number of times now, and he's from Georgia, but he's living in California, and he'll let you know that. Also had some boxing rules and committee report from Greg Serb, and he's one of the old boys he's done everything, been on most of the world title fights somewhere in the area. And he also did a session on the inspectors session. So before the fighters go out, there's an inspection that has to be taken place with their equipment and how they apply wrapping and stuff like that. And I can tell you all three of those sessions were very, very intense. We also attended a number of other sessions on weigh-in processes, suspensions. We actually had Dan Servin, he's a celebrity. He went to 84 Olympics in wrestling and got to hear him speak and how the changes in life were for him. And we also had a new commissioner orientation, and that was Martin Langlis. He's from Connecticut. He's a police officer, sergeant out there. And we also had the the president had to step down because of term commitments, and we voted in a whole new ABC executive. So there was a number of days there that we were talking nothing but MMA, medical resources, and we even started talking a little bit about, I'm trying to think now what the transgender fighters. And there was lots of discussion on that, but anyhow, I can give you a full report written if you'd like, but it was one of those things that we actually fit in there really good now. They want to know our opinion, and had lots of discussions and made some great relationships there.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Toole. And Councillor Plott, an update from the Grand Prairie Storm Hockey Club.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Yeah, we had a storm board meeting last week, and it was a couple highlights. I guess the loan is done and approved, and so that's been completed by the city. And it was nice for them to say that all the bills have now been paid, and so everybody within the community has been paid. It's just shareholders that are outstanding now. So it was a nice thing for them, and their fundraising efforts so far this year are holding their own. If anything, they're hoping they're going to be a little bit up from last year. So there was positive that way as well. And this weekend they're actually hosting a golf tournament. So I think they're about half sold out at the current point. So hopefully they'll, like Grande Prairie typically in last minute town, hopefully they'll fill it up. And then lastly, they are going to be doing another evening. Last year there was a few councillors that went to. They had a few celebrity hockey players come out, and that was a huge success for them on a fundraising initiative. So they're going to be doing that again this year, and they're already getting some input from some hockey players, past hockey players, that some of the names being thrown around that aren't official yet could be pretty entertaining folks. So hopefully they'll line that up, because that event was a huge success for them last year. So, but all in all, it seems like the Storms excited about the upcoming season. They're starting to put together their roster and getting their camp together. And financially, they feel like they're in a lot better position. So it was nice to be part of their group.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Platt. Our new appointee to the Storm Board. Certainly appreciate you representing the city's interests there. Were there any other reports from external agencies, boards, or commissions before I move on to Council Member Roundtable, just in case there's something I missed? If not, then we'll move to Councillor Clayton for Council Member Roundtable.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Don't have a lot to add as we were on a council break. However, I wanted to note that council had an opportunity to meet with our Member of Parliament, Chris Workington. It was nice for him to have some time with council, come out and talk about what's on the horizon as he gets ready for the obvious fall election, but also what his party is working on in regards to current issues that are impactful in our region. So that was a something that we do on a regular basis, but it was nice to have Chris come out and talk to council. Other than that, had a nice break, and it's good to be back and see everyone here. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Once again, I was gone for about 8 days down into the United States, where it was 114 degrees Fahrenheit. So wasn't a lot of touring around. We stayed where the air conditioning was. But we did come back, and I ended up attending the Heritage Day Festival with my brother from Ontario, and he was overwhelmed with how many people showed up, and I think the museum hit an all-time high for attendance. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they were pretty, I think in 2 hours in, they were 1,300 people walked through the doors. So once again, those are two of the ones that stand out for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Bressy.
Thank you, Mayor Given. A few highlights for me was Councillor Minhas and I got to go on a tour of Reading University, and that was a program that I knew of by reputation in our community, but I didn't really know what they did, and it was a really incredible program I got to see in terms of all these kids that are falling behind their classmates but don't qualify for traditional sports. That I know from working in the school system, often you got this kind of middle group of kids that are real danger of sliding down and they fall through the gaps. So it was great to see a program specifically for those kids, and a problem our community is solved by community members, and with government jumping on to support them late in the stage, but really a community-based program. I love to see that. A couple other highlights for me was I just got back from a week of vacation in Calgary and Edmonton. And it's funny how this job changes the way you travel, and something I thought I would never do 2 years ago. I spent half a day in Edmonton driving around new suburbs there because I was curious about their housing stock. And then I spent half a day in Calgary driving around looking at infill properties. And it really was interesting as we're talking about easing some of the restrictions in Grande Prairie potentially. And as we've talked about, as we said, we're open to more small lot residential properties. It was interesting seeing some really great communities with zero lot lines and are very dense communities, but very pleasant places to live when done right. So that was fun. It was also enjoyable seeing some of the community amenities, from parks to skating rinks to splash pads, that some of these communities fund by themselves instead of the city doing it through resident associations, and some of the ways to make communities special. And it's interesting. I know I've talked to some people here in town who have thought about something similar, so it was interesting seeing some models from other cities. Last thing I'll highlight was something I got to spend my morning doing, was going out to the par 3 Bear Paw golf course, where they're installing a disc golf course for a week. And I think it's fun. I'll shout out to disc golf and say, hey, if you want to try a beginner friendly course, that's a great one to try for the next week. But I think what was really great for me was talking to Nighthawk staff who are out there and talking about not just that, but some of the other things they're trying to do on that par 3 course, talking about some of the ways that they've been talking about expanding their RV site. I just think it's a really cool partnership that we've got with a nonprofit society in terms of asking them to operate and make awesome some city assets, some city facilities. And I think they're really doing us proud there. So I want to recognize Nighthawk for their work. And also I'm excited to talk about potential opportunities in the future for these, to partner with these nonprofits to help them not just strengthen their bottom line, but also to make city facilities better than we would on our own. So shout out to Nighthawk, and I look forward to future partnerships like that as well.
Thanks, Councillor Bressy. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. It's been a great 2 weeks, actually. I didn't go anywhere outside of the Grande Prairie region. It was quite glorious. I know we've had a lot of rain, but it seemed like the sun was shining every time I decided to take a day trip out to the Simonet, out to Pipestone, or out to Saskatoon Lake. So the sun is there this summer as long as you're willing to try. There was a couple events that I had the privilege and the pleasure of being at. Today FM hosted their 5-year anniversary, which is great to see. A bit of media diversity out there, and to celebrate that they are still holding strong and haven't been bought out by a super major company yet. At least they're not part of the Rogers brand. No offense to Rogers, but I like multiple media sources. So it was great to see the crew there and to participate in some of the fun and games. Apparently, I'm quite the axe thrower. You might have known that from how I know how to chop up a capital budget at budgets. Anyways, I was bullseye most of the time, so that was a lot of fun. And then we had a really productive meeting with most of council on August 1st. We met with the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction and local MLA, Tracy Allard, to talk about supervised consumption services, affordable housing in the region, and what Grande Prairie and area needs as far as to take care of our lesser fortune. We had one of our people here today who was obviously staying out at the Rotary House, but I think it would be really good if he was watching here today, Mr. Cam, that we are having those conversations consistently with our province and with our federal government, and this was just a nice, laid-back, casual meeting with them where we really got to not really ask them for anything, but just educate them on what the Grande Prairie area truly needs. Other than that, came back and I was happy to see a returnee to our staff as well. So I'd just like to welcome back Mr. Shane Burke, who took a bit of a leave to go use his skills elsewhere, but he has come back and it is great to have him back. So welcome back into the fold, mister. It's like having family return for a reunion. Anyways, that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Blackburn.
Well, surprisingly, I don't have anything to report. I've been enjoying time back in Grande Prairie since my release from hospital in June, and I've been attending council meetings, of course, and committee meetings, but no other activities at this point to report.
Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Yeah, it's been a little bit quieter last couple of weeks as far as our agendas filling up like they normally do, but I'm sure that'll keep coming back. But kind of the same theme as I had last 2 weeks was just starting to meet more community leaders around homelessness and affordability in the community. Getting my head around just how complex the problem really is more and more. Then definitely wasn't something when I campaigned that I was really as aware of how big of a problem it is. But it was really nice to hear some community leaders that are very engaged in some of their thoughts, and I'm excited and looking forward to some conversations I'm hoping we're going to have in committee in the next couple of weeks or a month in the future, and hopefully bringing some forward to the thoughts. And we get a few gentlemen that like to fill up our inbox, and had a chance to speak to one of them, and it was an interesting conversation, but it was well worth the time to take. So appreciated the conversations I had with the industry on that.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Platt. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I think there were two things when spoken out that university is Mr. Dillon and myself both were there, and Heritage Day, Kevin Toole and his brother, we had a good trip. It was a very good thing there, and Heritage Day is one there, but few community was missing this time, but most parade was quite busy, but not that busy. Sometimes it's because of the weather. And then I met, it happened, coincident, was going to Calgary for wedding and then a stop in Bellevue. Met the Bellevue, all the MD counselors. They have a meeting with the Todd Loan and talk to them. And seems like you don't get much out talking to them. Like they seem like very quiet right now. They're not saying what's going to happen, where the things are, try to find out, but he didn't saying nothing. He was saying, yeah, we are waiting till this, that, but and being new, they switched the chief, not the chief, Reeve from Dale Germain to Dale Smith. So that was a change they made. Also, they got a new CEO, which is they told us clean up quite a bit there, let some people go from their administrations to do proper jobs or whatever the reason they were. It was good meeting with them for me. And then the rest of the time I had a couple batting, and think you guys know the East Indian batting sticks. Where one was in Calgary, one was in Edmonton. So that's where my time was spent last 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Minhas. I'll just report briefly on a couple of other events I attended over the break. On Wednesday the 24th, I had the opportunity to go to Edmonton for the first meeting of the Alert Civilian Advisory Committee, and it was great to get that entity up and running. The next day I was able to do sort of a back-to-back in Edmonton with Reeve Smith from the MD of Greenview and Reeve Beaupre from the County of Grande Prairie and our economic development teams to talk to some MLAs about the Tri-Municipal Industrial Project. And later that afternoon I filmed a interview with Alberta Prime Time for CTV talking about Grande Prairie. And again, thanks to our economic development department that did a great job of making sure that I was prepped with all the great information to go in there and make sure people knew what was going on in Grande Prairie. Others have already reported on the meeting with the Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions here in Grande Prairie. And I think if I look at my calendar, I also had an opportunity last Friday to go to the Triangle Hall in Triangle in the MD of Big Lakes. If somebody knows, there's a few people that are nodding that they know where Triangle is. It took me a little while to figure it out. But for the RMA District 4 zone meeting, so AUMA has decided to sort of buddy up. Each AUMA board member sort of adopts a RMA zone, and we are welcome to attend the RMA meetings. And so I attended with a lot of our rural counterparts for a half day. They had one of the MPs for the north there, and two of the MLAs were there, along with a number of other presentations from organizations that would have been probably as interesting to AUMA members as it was for RMA members. And with that, I think that's all that I have to report. We're adjourned.